Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. On the podcast today is Lindsey Cheek. Lindsey is the owner and principal designer of Gathered, which is a design firm and curated boutique, and she's based in Wilmington, North Carolina. Lindsey was inspired from her grandfather, who was a master carpenter, and also some nomadic upbringing, 31 moves in 35 years. And with that, she became very well versed in architecture and construction before she pursued her degree in design. Finally, after landing in Wilmington, Lindsey began working with residential and commercial design clients across the country. In 2015, she opened a brick and mortar lifestyle shop that offers her signature mix of home accessories and favorite gifts. Lindsey leads a team of 5 and both designs and project manages from concept to completion, working with architects, general contractors, and trades. While they're based in Wilmington, they work all over the country, specializing in renovations and new construction projects. Lindsey and her family live in Lindsey's favorite design project to date, a 1928 colonial home they spent over a year renovating for their family. Lindsey and her team have been featured in many places, including Southern Living Magazine, HGTV Magazine, Martha Stewart Magazine, Consumer Reports, the Huffington Post, Rue Magazine, as well as the HGTV television network. Okay, seriously, when your first project, other than your own home, is $1 million home across the country, you have to get your act together. And that's what happened to Lindsey. Her home was featured, and the minute it was featured, she got a call all the way from across the country in California that said, "Hey, come help us." And she said yes. So she pushed through her fear and decided that's what she wanted, and she went after it. Her story is fun, and you're going to hear just the excitement and then the oh my goodness moments, and the wow is almost shocking. Lindsey shares how she had to adjust quickly, be flexible, and also pull a business together to support the project that she had said yes to. So enjoy the story of rapid growth and teamwork at its best. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Lindsey, how are you today? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Michelle.
So we met back at Fall Market at the Power Talk Live event that Luann Nagara hosted, and you were one of the attendees. I was one of the speakers, and we got to know each other a little bit on that very long day.
Yeah.
And your story just really impressed me. And there was so much I wanted to ask you, but as we both know, that day was so filled and so busy, there was no room for a lot of the extras. We just were down to work. And so I just thought, well, if I could ask you, I should just ask you where everybody can hear all of the details. And the funny thing is you're game to come on and do it. So
I know. Yeah, this is a first for me, but I'm excited to, talk more with you and then also share my story.
Awesome. So Lindsey, you are in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yes.
And you are a designer. Tell us a little bit about your first year in business. How did you get started?
Sure. So I, 4 years ago, my husband and I had purchased a home that was formerly a Section 8 house, which is government housing. And a contractor had bought it and renovated it to kind of very much builder grade finishes. And my husband was recently out of law school. We had very little money. So we purchased the home, which was in this great little neighborhood, but it had no charm or character. We also didn't have a lot of money. So the two of us, over the first year that we lived there, we did everything. We put tile backsplash up. We painted every wall. We added wallpaper. My first year of marriage, the gift is paper, and he got me this beautiful wallpaper for our very tiny hallway. So fast forward, that home was actually featured in HGTV magazine, and it was a big spread, 6 or 7 pages. And from there, I went to school for design. I was working as a wedding planner because my husband, although he was an attorney, was making very much entry-level pay, and I couldn't afford to go out on my own at that time. So um, we were just doing the best we could and really building our nest egg and making this tiny little home ours. So that home got into HGTV magazine, and about a month later, someone emailed me from Hong Kong, and he said, "My wife saw your house in the magazine. We live in Hong Kong. We're moving to Danville, California. They said, we would love for you to be our designer." And I thought, there's no way that this is real. So we had a phone call the next day, and sure enough, they had 5 children. They were moving to Danville, California, which is north of San Francisco. And I was a designer, but I didn't have accounts. I didn't have a bookkeeper. I had no software system in place. So I had to figure all of that out really quickly. And my first project was a full home. And looking back, I know that I made so many mistakes in pricing things incorrectly. I'm pretty sure I didn't charge freight on a lot of things, but that house led me to be able to open up so many accounts, and the ability to make a few mistakes because we had a full house. So I purchased a chair that wasn't quite right for this room. Well, it was a 7,000 square foot house. We could find another place to put it. So that really led to that family liked working with me enough. They purchased a second home in Tahoe. I did that house. And in between those projects, other people in Wilmington were asking me to do a bedroom. Can you help me with a kitchen backsplash? And I finally took the leap and went out on my own, and kind of the rest is history.
Okay, this sounds a little bit like a Cinderella story. You recognize that, right?
It was not a Cinderella story, though. I mean, I was working, 50, 60 hours a week, not charging for my time as I should have, really putting a lot on my credit card and not charging them correctly. There was a lot of mistakes that I made, but I think the kind of the grace in that is because the project was large. And they were very willing, and they knew that this was one of my first projects, and they were so flexible and so encouraging, and also were so hands off that they didn't care kind of the details in between, because they were in Hong Kong, I was in North Carolina, the time difference was crazy. They just wanted to have a beautiful home when they moved there, and that's what happened. But yeah, that sounds a little bit like a Cinderella story, but there's a lot of scrubbing, the floors like she did in between.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking. There was a lot of scrubbing and ashes and nasty and dirty.
Right.
But it really turned out great at the end.
It did.
Yeah. But so I found so many things intriguing and interesting about that. Number one, and I want to ask you this in just a minute, but how your house got in HGTV. I mean, how did that happen? And then I think it's very interesting that the very first people that see you're in Wilmington, you haven't even set up a full-time interior design business, and they hire you to fly out to California to put together an entire 7,000 square foot house. And then they just move you on to Tahoe to do the next house. So you are bi-coastal. I mean, you are one side to the other. Talk about a way to start in the deep end. And most of us don't start in these multi-million-dollar homes and projects as our very first design job alone. A lot of times we come in as the assistant or junior or second designer or something. But I hate to use the term, but it's almost like a baptism by fire. It's
That's
like
exactly what I was gonna say. That we use that term a lot at our studio, my team, and it is a lot baptism by fire. While I do have a design degree, no one teaches you about business.
No.
And my parents are not entrepreneurs. My husband was working for someone at the time, and we really had to kind of, pull up our bootstraps and figure it out. And it was a great project. I learned a lot. I still speak with them all the time. And their son actually goes to Duke University, which is just down the road from us. So it's been a great long-term relationship. But it was.
So Lindsey, how did your the thing that kind of kicked off and ignited this firestorm of work was the HGTV magazine spread. How did you get that? How did they scout you? Did you pitch to them? How did that come about?
So HGTV found me through a blog that I had, and I was really blogging. I have young children, and my parents live out of town, and I wanted a way to keep them up to date, but also really, again, I was a young mom and wanted to have a creative outlet. And this was before a lot of those blogs or everything was so saturated. And I had met another blogger on a trip. Well, my husband and I were in Costa Rica, and she's a designer in Charleston. So she tagged me in an Instagram post that just said, look at my friend that I met in Costa Rica, and, isn't her house so cute? Something like that. HGTV followed her, then followed me, and called me. So it was really a referral from a friend that I kind of knew that had a connection with HGTV. It was not me reaching out to them, which we have certainly done in the past to get projects published, but it was very much so happenstance, the right place at the right time for that particular magazine.
Wow. Okay, so it gets published. You
Yes.
immediately get called and have to go bi-coastal. Now you're designing.
Right.
And did you had children at that point, right?
Right.
Oh my goodness. So children, a husband who was still working for a firm, not long out of law school. You're traveling back and forth around the country.
Right. Well, I actually only went there twice.
Oh,
I went
wow.
So I went for the first install.
Okay.
And then I went for the accessory install, because we put probably $25,000 worth of accessories in their home, just in the main living areas. And that's when I took my husband with me to hang artwork. But I actually, I didn't have to go that much because they weren't there. They were in Hong Kong. The architect was gracious enough to FaceTime and send us plans over. So that was very fortunate. We have clients all over the country. We go and do site visit the first time that we meet with them, but typically we don't have to do a lot of back and forth because we have CAD and we have that skill set, which is a great benefit to our clients because we're not wasting flight money, per diem money, mileage, all of that. And they're still happy with the result. We speak to them all the time. We talk to the contractors all the time, but it's not a lot of back and forth. We're just very efficient with our time when we're there.
I love that. So you had made a comment prior to us recording that there were some things that happened from that install in California that led you to make some business decisions back in Wilmington.
Right.
That had to do with all the accessories. I think what you shared with me was you had all of the furniture and those really large items shipped directly out there so that you could have them brought into the home.
Right.
But all the accessories that you had curated, you had brought to your warehouse in Wilmington so that you could look at them and inspect them. And then you put them on a truck and had them driven across the country.
We did. I think we had like 67 boxes of accessories and coffee table books and baskets and, whatever the home needed. And we were receiving them for, maybe 2-3 months at the warehouse, and friends would come by and, other clients would come by and say, my gosh, I've never seen this. Because we were able to source other things than we would typically do for our Wilmington clients back then, because the price point was different for those clients in California. The aesthetic was different, but also they trusted us. I didn't have to have a tray approved. And now we don't have trays approved. We install the furniture, accessorize everything with a shopping list of all the accessories. And then, they have 72 hours to live with it, and they write us a check. And typically it's for 100% of it. Rarely do we have something returned. But that prompted me to say, okay, let's give it a go. Let's open a store. And it was a very modest store, 1,100 square feet. But that store, 3 years later, we just made another transition, and it was not a knee-jerk reaction, kind of like opening the store was. The store lost money every year, and it took time away from design projects and my family. And I'll never ask my team to do something I'm not willing to do. And I'm not willing to miss soccer games and dance recitals. And that's what a store does. And yes, it provides a lot of flexibility when you're in a design project. But what we did is we moved to a new space just last week. And now the store is maybe 300 square feet. all built-ins, and it's all accessories that we can place in our clients' homes. But we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. The store is open. My operations manager, has her, big desk up there, but we're not like warehousing accessories or having that overhead with the hope that someone will come in and that blue and white checked pillow with a green trim is going to be perfect for their home. I mean, that's just not realistic, and it's not a good use of my time or my cash. So, once we made that decision, as much as it felt like a defeat, a failed, every girl, at least ones I know, a lot of them want to have a store. And I did have it, but I have priorities that are better suited to either kind of what I find profitable, which is able to leave at 3:00 and go and, pick my little girl up from dance, or go and have lunch with my kids, or go on vacation. And that's not, you don't have that flexibility when you have a store. And it's so much more profitable not to have that, but have a resource and in such a small, concise area, like our new storefront. It's just been such a great change.
Okay, so I love that. There's so many things that you keep saying, I love it. I know people are like, Michelle's thing is like, I love that. I do. I really do. For a couple of reasons. One, I think a lot of us, especially in your place with friends going, you need a store, what they really are saying is, I want access to what you have to sell. That's really what they're saying.
Right.
But in their mind, the general way to have access is through a storefront. Mm-hmm. And so they don't realize they could have had access to all of that at any time, in any place, anyway, as a client of yours.
Right.
But truthfully, we're not going to normally go out and sell onesie, twosie accessories to anybody.
Right.
And so I can understand that, let's open up a storefront. But I'll tell you that a lot of storefronts that I have worked with, they don't make a lot of money on the storefront side. They're making their money on the design side, selling what they bring into the storefront. Right.
So Gathered was the storefront's biggest customer. So we, our design clients that we pull from the store we were our biggest client. So I didn't need children's accessories and jewelry and, 90 brands of candles. I didn't need any of that to make a profit. And at this point, if I'm 60 and want a hobby, I'll open up a little store that has all those cute things and go to market, 4 times a year. But right now, I don't need that or want that. I would much rather be working with clients that really appreciate our time and need our help and trust us. And then I get to close the door when I want to and go home to my family. That is, I don't need a hobby right now. And that's kind of what a storefront is, or my experience, at least. That's what it was.
Okay. So another thing that I find very interesting is that with this first client being so big, whole house, hands off, Hong Kong to Wilmington to California, here's 7,000 square feet. Here are the drawings. Here are all the contractor names. Here's the builder. Make it look beautiful. Like you said, soup to nuts. You were even sharing with me, it was down to pressed linens. It was setting up the kitchen. I mean, it was a full house install.
Correct.
What I find is that number one, you're right, that project was huge. I mean, there are many designers that if that had been the very first call they got, they probably would have killed over. I mean, it just is, that's a lot to manage.
I think ignorance was bliss, though. I didn't have anything else to really compare it to.
Right. However, what's so interesting for me is that it set up an idea for you of who your ideal client was.
That's right.
Right. Because so many of us in business, when we start off slow and we start off serving the other people who maybe are as poor as we are, like we would start working with the other moms whose husbands just were in law school, or we're working with others that are in the same kind of demographic.
Right.
They may not be calling us in to do an entire home. We're going to throw everything out or get rid of it all, start over.
Right.
So it is a little more PC kind of thing.
Right.
Right. But this client came into you, Lindsey, and pretty much said, we saw you in HGTV magazine. Mm-hmm. We trust you after, of course, a conversation. Right. We are going to stay hands off. Just get it done.
Just
And
get it
then
done.
the beautiful thing is, number one, the ideal client persona is so beautiful. Hands off, lots of money, big house, go. We
Right.
trust you.
Right.
But it also gave you such space to try things, to be willing to try, because if you failed, you had a little bit of space or time to clean it up without them standing there looking over.
That's right. Yes.
And so
yes.
you could be a little bit more outside the box, if you will, than when you are doing a really tight budget,
Tiny room.
small
Yeah.
project.
That's right. That's right. So our ideal client, it's not, I'm 36. It's not a 36-year-old. Our ideal client is it's a couple or a single person that is very busy and is a working professional. Or if they are a stay-at-home mom, they're involved in, charities and nonprofits and very heavily involved with their children's activities. But, we have learned a lot in the last couple of years of those red flags. It's not that we don't want our clients to be hands-on, because we do. We want them. This is their home, and at the end of the day, this is our job is not done until the clients are happy. Now, that doesn't mean that if you come to me and have a $5,000 budget, that I'm going to do your living room. We, my husband. This is kind of a segue. My husband, being a criminal defense attorney, was hearing kind of my frustration and my operation manager's frustration with the amount of phone calls that we would get. And it was, she would have to spend her time. Every client is important, whether you have $1 million budget or a $500 budget. We just were not able to service those $500 budgets. And this kind of segues into how our team has grown. My husband, being a criminal defense attorney, said, speeding tickets, when people come to me for a speeding ticket and I do a good job, they're going to call me for a DUI or a drug trafficking because he's a criminal defense. Why are you turning money away? And I said, I don't have the time to do it. And he said, you don't, but you can build a team that can care for those clients. And maybe that is a lawyer and a PA student. And right now their budget's $5,000, but in 5 or 6 years, they're going to buy another home. And because you took such great care of them, with their $5,000 budget, and you were respectful and they're proud of that, they're going to now hire you when they have, a $100,000 budget. So I said, well, I can't do that. So we've created a mini design service, and it's a junior designer that worked for me for 2.5 years. And she had a baby and came back, and she's taking those projects and leading those, and I'm editing everything, but we're working within those tighter budgets and providing the same amount of service to those clients. And they've been so happy. It provides her a job. It provides us, our arms are stretched longer. And there's been some internal shifts that have had to happen to support that influx of clientele. Because again, they're just as important as, our $1 million clients are, but it's just another kind of stream of revenue. And what we saw was not wasting our time, but it was taking a lot of our time up. We've now been able to turn that into a profit.
So that's also, I think, a really great point to make is all money matters. All money is important, but things do have to shift. Talk to us a little bit. And well, let me back up and say this first. I bet a lot of those $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 jobs, they're probably the more local jobs.
They are. We have some that are like we've got one in South Dakota. We have one in Kentucky right now, and they're not. They're under $20,000.
Okay.
We make them set a budget, and if they say I don't know, then we'll say this is what a typical room cost. And are you okay with that? Is that in your budget? So we make them set a firm budget, because if not, it's just a massive waste of time. But they are more local, but it's servicing those clients that aren't ideal full service clients, and they're more hands-on typically. They're more indecisive typically. They've typically never worked with an interior designer or a contractor, so they don't really know the process. It's a lot more time consuming for our junior designer to design one living room than it is for our full service clients sometimes to design the whole house. because they're, they care about that, or of course they care, but they're more particular about that one pillow than seeing, as our full service clients do, the whole house. They just see it on board and say yes. So
share a little bit, if you will, about how you started building the team. Did you start building the team immediately when you got called to go out to California?
mm-hmm.
How have you put your team together, and then how has it shifted?
Sure. I, the first thing I did when I opened my business was hire an accountant. And she was our neighbor. She's not my accountant anymore, but not because of any, anything bad. It's just we've grown in different directions. But I hired her because I was scared to death of taxes, because I've seen that in other small
Yes.
businesses. And so she said, you need to have someone to run your books and price things, because I was doing it like on an Excel spreadsheet. And so I hired Morgan, who is still with me now after 4 years. She's not a designer. She was a psychology major in college. And I said, no, I can't hire you full time, but I can supplement it. She was just graduating college with watching my kids, and she said, you're going to need me full time. I was just so confident. She had worked with me for maybe a week. And I said, well, if you're okay babysitting, maybe 15 hours and working with me for 15 hours, she goes, you're going to need me full time. And sure enough, the next week, the phone was ringing off the hook, and she's been my full-time person, but she runs the operations. So when someone calls, she vets them, she talks to them, she explains our process. She is really kind of our gatekeeper. She also prices everything, sends all the proposals, because if it were up to me, I would charge $1 for my time, because I want to help everybody. I would give them everything, at cost or free, never charge them freight. It's not difficult for me to talk money when it comes to budgets, but it's hard for me to say, this is what I charge an hour and I'm worth it. Where Morgan can say that all day long. We've never had anybody say no if they're the right client. We've raised our prices by 50% about 8 months ago, and not one person said no. And I was like, man, we should have raised them first a long time ago. But also, I should have done 100%. I should have done double. But so Morgan is really our gatekeeper and kind of my left arm. She's there. She's on salary and then has an incentive every quarter for our gross sales. Then I've got
Stop right
another
there
Morgan.
a second. I want to make one comment. The great thing about having Morgan in that position, and I have seen this for a lot of the other companies I've worked with, if they have somebody else who is stating these are the prices,
right,
and like, so they have a strategic pricing plan in the company. We mark up this amount.
Right.
We have this amount of margin that we're working towards, and this is what our hourly rates are, and this is what a project consists of, and this is what a budget, and you give it to that person that you have hired. Mm-hmm. They will stand up for those numbers all day long.
That's right. And also it sets where clients do not talk to me about lead times for furniture. They don't talk to me about a pricing question. It's not because I'm not approachable. It's because Morgan's role. They know that that's Morgan's role all day long. Now, if it's a design question or a contractor has a question, they call me. And it's so funny that they'll email or they'll send me a text, and then, which I also don't text. And that's another, that's a whole nother podcast. But they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me email. That's a Morgan question. And I'm like, yes, we have at least set up our boundaries correctly.
That's excellent.
She is fiery in the best kind of way. She's such an advocate for not only me, but Gathered as a whole. And, is just amazing, but she also pushes me beyond my comfort level a lot. So she was operations, but also would go to meetings with me and take notes and take pictures and take measurements. And again, not a designer. And when I opened up the storefront, she said, you need a design assistant. And I said, I can't afford that. She goes, you're going to go crazy if you don't get one. So, I reached out to all the other designers in town and put out, a lot of leads on Craigslist and Indeed, and to the colleges here and to the school that I went to, and found a great designer right out of school. And she had a different strength set than I did, which was great. very detail oriented. Now she's moved into that junior designer role. Since then, I've hired another assistant who will now take on her own projects in the near future. And then we have another design assistant who I've hired in the last month. And she has a design background in sales, which is really great. She's from Nashville, and it's just the culture that we've created. And you'll never hear me say my design or I did that. It's always like our team, because Morgan, who does all of our pricing, is so much, I mean, she's just as important as I am, or as our carpenter, but it's really having that mentality that I think has created such loyalty from our team members.
I think that is also displayed in your company name of Gathered.
Yes.
Not only is it gathered in the home, but you are a gathered collection of professionals.
Correct. And that's why we've been successful, because we've had, there's been a lot of baptism by fire. There's been a lot of figuring it out on your own. I never worked for another designer. And I don't have a business background. That's why I listened to podcasts and went to that conference where I met you. And there's a lot of, I have a mentor, which has saved me a tremendous amount of heartache. Her husband is an amazing business owner, and I'll call him in tears with things that he's like, Lindsey, get over it. And he just is really a tough cookie, but I can call them and they will tell me or guide me or lead me. I have that mentor who saved me a tremendous amount of heartache. And then I have another person that's a realtor here, and we talk about business, and we'll go on 6 a.m. walks and just talk about things that it's great that we have, a small firm, and it's great that we have all these projects, but I could maybe bill 30%, 50% of my time, because the rest is people managing. And it's making sure that they have what they need to be successful. It's making sure that our clients are feeling loved on and cared for. And also that we can continue to build our business and with outreach and marketing and connecting with our community. So, a lot of times me and my mentor friends, or business friends will just go for early morning walks, because that's about the only time we can get together and, have a heart to heart about, man, this staff member came to me and did I handle it the right way? Or how would you handle this? And that it's been a help in growing my business.
I think that is so very true. Having that person that you can talk to bounce ideas off of, whether it's a coach,
Right.
a mentor, an accountability partner, or the combo of all three, right?
Right.
I have business mentors, I have a coach, and I have an accountability partner. And so I'm bouncing things all the time, because it can feel very lonely when you're the one who has to manage it, especially when you've only been in business, 4 or 5 years.
Right.
You're still learning. Yeah. I mean, I've been in business 18, 19. I'm still learning.
Right.
Because different things happen. Yeah. What would you say, Lindsey, is the biggest challenge you've had to date in your business?
I think that just me getting over being a working mom. I mean, not that I ever knew any different. My mom worked and my grandmother worked. In our community and in my circle of friends, 95% of them are stay-at-home moms. And it was a lot harder when my kids were little and not in school, because I would be on this group text with play dates and not able to go, and I would have such massive mom. But I think me getting over that this is not a hobby, this is a business. My goal is to match or make more than my husband does, who has a graduate degree and is a really great attorney. But running it, I'm 36, I'm 5'1", I'm blonde. I go on these construction sites, and at the very beginning, these men did not take me seriously. And then I started talking, and they were like, "Oh, this girl knows what is going. She knows her stuff." And I think getting out of my own head and being able to lead and be very decisive in what I wanted for not only my firm, but the clients that I wanted, and being able to say no to those projects that weren't right for us. I mean, all of that it's so easy now for me to talk about it, because it's changed the way that my business is, and it's made us so much more profitable. But the stress and all of that, it's still there, but it's just not, it's bigger problems, different problems, because we have better projects, bigger projects. Being really confident in the space that I'm standing and owning it has been the biggest struggle that that I've had that I've gotten through.
I think that is so beautifully said. I know when I started my business, when I worked corporate at the beginning, and
Right.
when I worked corporate, I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old towards the end. But it was interesting because the majority of the moms that I hung around were the corporate moms because they were at work with me.
Right. Right.
And so I had a few friends on the outside, either in my subdivision, actually all of them worked. So it would have probably been a couple of girlfriends from church, maybe, who were stay-at-home moms, but that wasn't what I was surrounded with. And then I left corporate and came home, and for about 1.5 years, I was a stay-at-home mom. And I was constantly looking for small jobs or things that I could do because I just did not feel like I could just
stay at home.
If I had to go to a play date every day, I literally think I couldn't do it. And I'm like, what the heck is a play date? I just left my house and went and played and came home at night. What is this? And why do I have to stay? And now I got to talk to it just was not I didn't mind doing it on occasion.
Right.
But if and there's nothing wrong with people who love that. It was not, I needed more. Right. And so then when I started my business, I still, within my local friend group, I would say the majority of them are stay-at-home moms, and I'm the outlier. And so I have had to make that same piece, Lindsey, that it's okay. I love what I do. You know, I love who I serve, and I still love my children. Yeah. You know, I brought them around. They
love you.
They love me. It's all good. And I think there's a space for every woman, no matter whether she chooses to stay home or whether she chooses to do it part-time or full-time. But I just want to point out, you said it's fully owning where I am. And when I got to the point that I didn't feel like I needed to apologize. Yeah. And then I had to I remember being that stay-at-home mom and feeling like I was apologizing to my corporate friends because I wasn't in corporate. Yeah. And then I became, a business owner. And now I feel like I'm apologizing to my stay-at-home mom. I'm like, this is crazy. Why am I apologizing to all these people? Just do your thing. Yeah. And that's really in the 20s and 30s, that working it out. Right. And now I'm like you. I just stand in, here's where I am. This is what I'm doing. I love it. My family loves it. We're all good.
Yeah. And sometimes it's really just like, fake it till you make it. I may be struggling and really sad that I didn't, get to be on this charity board with these other moms that stay at home and, but, at the end of the day, it's what's important to me. And I'm providing for my family. I'm providing jobs for 5 other women and countless other men and women that are not a part of our core, gathered family. And that's something to be so proud of. And again, I can leave and go to lunch with my little girl, and we're going to Spain over Thanksgiving to see friends. I'm able to do that because I own my own business, but we're also able to do that because I'm providing an income that allows our family to do that. And I wouldn't change that for the world.
No, absolutely not. And you're like you said, when we think about just the overflow of what we do and the other lives that are impacted, I even think about the fact that because I work, I'm able to hire, staff to come in and clean my house.
That's right.
I'm able to hire other people, even outside of my business, to do things that affects the economy simply because I work and have the money to pay to do that. And that's where, I'm never about gouging when we talk about money and profits, but it's profitable for a lot in more than just the money. Right. And so I'm so glad that you have seen that. What would you say have been some of the greatest successes of your business so far? With the whopping 4 years.
So we just moved into this beautiful new studio space, and that has been, I want to cry to think about it, how far we've come. It's just like having a space where I'm so proud of. We started in a warehouse that did not have air conditioning or a bathroom. And then moved into this tiny little storefront studio. And on one side of us was a hunting gun shop, and on the other side, believe it or not, was he's like number 4 in the country and a professional MMA boxing fighter. So to say that we stuck out like a sore thumb is an understatement, but it was very,
You
very.
were well protected.
Oh yes, ma'am, I sure
You were
was.
well protected,
And,
girl.
and I, again, I said I was 5'1". I'm pretty petite and tiny. And Derek, who was the MMA fighter, they were so loud one day that the artwork in the store was rattling, and one of the pieces broke. It fell off the wall and broke. And I marched over there and I said, "You need to come in my store right now." And I took him to that. I mean, I was furious. And I said, you know, he's this like giant Jack. He did not have a shirt on. He was like so sweaty. And I was like, this is what's going to happen here. And I think, from a warehouse to that, and I adore him. And they know now, they knew after that.
You're a little
Okay.
spitfire.
Yes. So after that, they were like, okay, we're going to be respectful, just like they're respectful for us. But moving from that location, again, just, last week, into this beautiful new space, and an architect is our neighbor, and we are not working on top of each other, and we have a kitchen and a beautiful conference room and
a bathroom.
It's the little things. And that has been, I feel like, because I've been able to provide this space for my team where they feel inspired and cared for, and where they can do their best work. That has been, I feel like, such a big accomplishment. Yes, like these projects that we've done, and we've created beautiful homes for these families, and we've gotten published in national magazines and have been, recognized by these, the Huffington Post and Martha Stewart Living and all of these. I mean, yes, that is rewarding, but every single day going to a space that I love, where my kids can come in and they have their art drawer and my dog can go with me to work, that has been really it's been an amazing feeling.
I would love to see what your strengths finders say. I bet connectedness, community, I bet all of that's going to be at the top of your list, especially with a name like Gathered.
Yeah.
Pulling together internally, externally, groups, people.
Yeah.
I think that it would be interesting for you to look at your top 5 strengths and see what they are, because I do believe that's probably playing out in front of you with this business that you are creating, not only for you, but in your community.
Right. I was very careful not to name it Lindsey Cheek Interiors. I was, blessed. It's another kind of happenstance. I went to Atlanta for market, and on my way back, a lady was sitting beside me, and she was maybe in her 60s, and she was dressed just so fashionable and the most appropriate way, and all this gorgeous jewelry. And I was like, I want to know who this lady is. And it happened to be the vice president of Ballard Designs. And we were on a flight from Wilmington to New York, or Atlanta to New York. And I had just started my business, and she said, well, what's the name of it? And I said, well, I'm just trying to figure that out. And she said, don't name it your name, because you'll never be able to sell it. You'll never be able to grow it. And if other designers eventually work for you, they're going to feel resentful because it's not their name on the door.
And everybody's going to call and ask for Lindsey, because that's the name they're going to know. Yeah.
Right. And if, as a business owner and as a leader, if my team doesn't produce the same quality of work that I do, I've done a bad job hiring, but also a bad job training. So, the Gathered experience, whether you're 5,000 or 50,000, the experience and the process and the quality of design work should be the same, and it is. But I thought that was such great advice, and I think it creates a better culture for our team.
So what is your next big profitability goal in your company? So now you've got this beautiful new space that I can see the emotion, which is so beautiful. So what is your next profit goal or business goal? Because, you seriously have accomplished quite a bit in 4 years. You got into a huge project at the very beginning, which doesn't happen often.
Right.
You also know some of this is, maybe not coincidence, but serendipitous. Right. I look at it.
I'm ready for hard. Like I think I've just prepared myself.
Yes.
And I've done the hard work, and it's maybe it's been serendipitous, or I've had great connections, but it's really been because we put all the work behind it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to me, I look at it as just a blessing, like a God's blessing that you
Right.
have worked really hard. And so now, and sometimes we have to work really hard for multiple years for it to show up. So I
Right.
don't also want any of our listeners to think, well, I worked hard and it's not showing up. We got to keep putting it out there and doing the best that we can do. And I
Right.
do think making connections helps, because every one of the things that you've described was through a connection of something else.
Right.
And I
Absolutely.
think it is easy for us to withdraw sometimes and hold back, and then that can hamper us. So with
Right.
all of that said, what are your next big goals?
So we have, we're right in the middle kind of treading water. Had in Wilmington before we had the hurricane come through, and since then it has been tremendous. So right now we're a little bit just trying to keep our head above water. Um, you know, personally, and with myself and my husband, we want to eventually have, um, a second home or a rental property that I would, of course, love to design. But I would love to get into a niche market, not as our whole business, but as part of our business. We live at the beach, and we're so lucky that we have such a tremendous amount of wealth from everywhere else that vacations here. So, my team and I have talked about getting into that niche market of doing rental homes and vacation homes, because those are, again, our ideal clients. They're saying, as long as it rents and makes a profit, we really don't care. And we love having that control as well, of doing the whole project soup to nuts. That's where we're most effective, and where the payout, both design wise and profitability, is the best. But I would love to be able to get in that niche market as another kind of line of our business of Gathered, and create that new space for us. And that's just connecting with the right realtors and the right rental agencies, which we can do, but that's kind of on the docket for 2019.
Wow, so you got some big plans coming.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing that you got moved in early if all that is planning, right?
That's
Because
right.
it takes a good bit of coordination to get it set up. I've been watching your pictures on Instagram as you've kind of detailed the move.
Yes.
It's not just pick up one day and jump in the space.
It is not. And again, I can't say enough about my team. I've been able to keep working every day, and they've really coordinated. I chose the finishes and the furniture just like I do for design projects, but they have been the ones executing it, and meeting with the electrician to place lights so that I can continue to focus on our design clients. But we're in, and we're getting settled, and we're so just thankful to be in a new space.
So one of our wrap-up questions I have for you is, you have done well with choosing a staff. I'm not saying you haven't had hiccups. We all have them, right? So not everybody necessarily, we haven't gone through every staff member, not
Sure.
asking you to.
Sure.
But you have surrounded yourself with staff that support the mission, the vision of Gathered, that want to do the work, that are excited to be there, that feel part of the team. I know a lot of that is your top-down leadership. But if you have any suggestions for our listeners on anything that worked for you, or when you were hiring that team, what was it? Is there any question that you ask? Is there something that you look for? How did you go about choosing the ideal team for you?
Well, it's been a lot. We've got 5, 6, including me, on staff. That's not to say that we haven't had people come in and then quickly leave. Maybe 2 people have done that, and it was a gut check. Their language wasn't in line with our mission statement and culture. Their attitude wasn't in line with the culture. But it's really just establishing, this is how we do things. This is what our goals are. This is what our kind of moral compass as a company is. And do you fall in suit with that? And it's just being respectful of each other. We all are so different, which I don't need another Lindsey. I'm fine. I'm enough. I need someone, So when I look and to hire people, I hire people that have the strengths that I don't have. Right now, they're organizing our new fabric library. That would stress me out. That is not my strong suit. But it is for Amber and Vinny, our design assistants. and they love it and they thrive in it. Really trusting your gut, but also asking, Morgan has been with me for 4 years, and I ask her opinion because I care about it. She knows my business. I compensate them well. I know that I do. It scares me sometimes. There's been times where I don't take a paycheck, but I always cover their cost and treat them well, buy them, take them to lunch, grab coffee on the way. And I think it's just being respectful of them and letting them know that I appreciate them so much. I've never felt taken advantage of by them, but I think it's also trusting your gut. If someone is not right in your team, it can be cancerous and spread. And it just, when you let that person go, it is like a breath of fresh air has come in. Mm-hmm. And it's such an expensive mistake to happen, to hire someone that's not right. We had a bookkeeper incident, and wasn't part of our team, but was very important. And I knew in my gut, I knew it was wrong, and I waited too long, and it was wrong. And, right now we're fixing it, and I'm able, thankfully, to cover those mistakes, but I didn't trust my gut, and I should have. But our team's wonderful, and they're so talented, but they all have different abilities and personalities that make it really enjoyable to go to work every day.
Yeah, there's a saying that says hire slow, fire fast.
That's right.
And I think it's easier to say than to do. And we do constantly want to give the benefit of the doubt. And I'm not suggesting that we don't, but we usually know when we're not following through maybe as quickly as we should. And it always costs us. But you do know when it feels like it's lifted on the other side. So, and we could probably do a whole podcast on gut checks,
doing that.
Intuition when you're in the middle of it. I mean,
we just I had a glass of wine with one of my mentors earlier this week, and we were talking about staff, and she said it'll stick with me. I thought it was so just poignant. She said, "You're being unkind by being unclear." And it's whether that's a bad hire, or you're not telling a staff member or a team member what is annoying you or upsetting you, or what all. And I thought, man, that is like, okay,
that's profound.
I'm a nice person, but I'm not always clear. And I was like, okay, noted. Okay, and I thought that
because they can't meet an expectation, and now there's almost a setup for failure. When we're not being clear. Oh, I like that.
Yes.
Being unclear is unkind.
That's right.
I'm writing that one down to remember. Well, Lindsey, thank you so much for sharing your journey. I know that you're going to have wild success. I'm going to put Wilmington on my plans. I'm going to come see you.
Yes. Oh, we have such a charming town, and we would love
it up there. Mm-hmm. We'll be keeping you all in our thoughts and prayers as your city rebuilds. I know there was quite the destruction that came through recently. Lindsey, where can our listeners find you?
So they can find us on Instagram at Gathered Group, and our website is gatheredgroup.com.
Excellent. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it, especially in the middle of moving into a new space.
Thanks for having me. It was such a joy.
Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
I am so thankful to Lindsey for sharing her business path and the growth that she's had with us all. While each of us may share a different journey in business, we all share a need to know where we are financially. To check the financial health of your company, go to scarletthreadconsulting.com, click the purple bar at the top, and take the health checkup for your business. It will help you discover where you're solid and where you might need to do a little work. We all have work to do. Thanks again for your time listening to the podcast. And remember, profit doesn't happen by accident.